Hey, it's Bill, and you're tuned into the Pennsylvania Rock Show featuring the best unsigned rock and metal that Pennsylvania has to offer right here on PARockShow.com, MegaRockRadio.net, 107.1 FM, St. Louis, Missouri. Notice that FM thing. You got to keep it clean for me.
I always keep it clean, Bill.
XRPRadio.co.uk in Birmingham, United Kingdom. RootarooRadio.com on the West Coast in San Diego on a nice beach there, a few hours behind us. Cross our northern border to altrockradio.ca for Mississauga, Toronto, Canada. Alt Rock Radio. BuildAScene.com, right where I'm sitting right here in my living room. That's Leechburg, Pennsylvania. I'm sure I forgot one of the stations because I do it almost every week. My name is Bill. This is episode number 538 of the Pennsylvania Rock Show. With me tonight is SuperMonkey. This is going to be so hard for me to do. What's up?
How you doing today? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing well. Before we even get started, tell me about that guitar over your shoulder.
That is my SuperMonkey Les Paul that I started with my band SuperMonkey a long time ago, back in the day, probably 2002 to 2004. I'm not sure. I bought it at Hollywood Music in Pittsburgh here, and I've had it. I played it at many shows, and I've repaired the neck on it actually a couple times, and I just kind of retired the guitar at this point. And it still plays. It's in good shape. I mean, I just don't want to have the neck come apart anymore. If you know anything about Les Pauls, they have a tendency to snap on the neck, and I don't want to snap anymore. It's a prized possession of mine, so I just kind of keep it in my office because it looks cool.
Before we get too far into this, I do want to mention the music that the listeners have heard already. We opened things up with Lou Lombardi's song "Where Have All the Acid Queens Gone?" Followed that with the Borstal Boys, "Don't Let Life Pass You By," and now we're having a conversation with SuperMonkey, and I have a bunch of questions for him like I do each week. I have a new question this week provided by Christina Sanovica of the band The Shadow Event. We'll get to that in the second segment. But the first thing that I want to know from you is, tell me a bit about SuperMonkey as a whole. It's almost like you're your own industry.
Well, I mean, I guess I kind of am, but I started as a musician, obviously, in a band that we named SuperMonkey, and I was the driving force behind that, band. And I was everybody just kept calling me SuperMonkey. It was like one of those things, like after the shows, people would just start calling me that. And it kind of stuck, and I'd see people in public, and they'd be like, "Hey, SuperMonkey, what's going on?" Just kind of like became a funny moniker in a weird way. And so I just kind of ran with it, and then I played with those guys, and I kind of formed a band with a bunch of different friends of mine, and played with them for quite a while. And I think about 2012, I started my record label, and I just named it SuperMonkey Recording Company. I honestly just did it for myself, Bill, to start having some kind of business behind my music. And then I also partnered with Pat DeCesar from DeCesar Angler, and Pat has been a mentor to me in so many ways in life and in business, and especially in the music business, and kind of taught me everything about what I need to know, where all the money's going, to be honest with you, in the music business. And I started promoting my own shows and building my own record label, and recruiting other bands and trying to work with bands as a producer. And I'd gotten a grant at one point to open up in a section of the city, and so I opened a vinyl shop, which once my lease was up, I kind of moved out of that section of town, and then COVID hit. And so I'm waiting to open back up somewhere. I don't want to do it until all this ridiculousness is over with. I'm not going to, on a business level, make that kind of decision until people can walk out and walk into a store. So I'm just kind of hanging out and making music and not playing live like a lot of people. So but I hope that answers your question. It's kind of just grown from one thing to another. really. And it's I try to keep the brand alive. I know a lot about branding and marketing, so I try to I know it can be a little bit confusing at times, for people, but we'll figure it out. You figured it out, right, Bill?
Yeah, I'm on top of it. I had a bad habit in the beginning of not thinking about branding, which is I've gotten better at it.
Mm-hmm.
I started out with akmusicscene.com for the Alikiski Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And quickly I moved further than the Alikiski Valley, so then I had a domain that didn't fit what I was doing. And then the Pennsylvania Rock Show, eventually bands from outside of Pennsylvania wanted to be involved. And so that really didn't work as a name anymore. So now, I've slowly moved it into Build the Scene, which doesn't pigeonhole me anywhere.
No, it's great what you guys are doing, by the way. Thank you. Thanks for having me on here, and thanks for supporting all these bands and musicians, especially through this insanity.
The COVID thing is what pushed me into doing the videos. I used to only do audio, and I was sitting here because I'm a teacher, so I ended up with some extra time on my hands. I was still teaching, but I live an hour from my school, so I gained 2 hours every day because I didn't have to drive to and from school. And I was like, what can I do? And I was like, I have a camera. And
that's awesome.
So that's where the live video interviews came from. So, adapt and conquer, right?
That's all you can do.
So as I was telling you off the air, we have some friends in common, that I caught you off guard with. So you've played with a ton of Pittsburgh musicians and worked with them in various projects. Do you want to do some name dropping? Some people you've worked with?
Well, I mean, here.
And now you're going, but what if I forget them?
I know. Not someone that's somebody yelling at me like, wait a minute, I thought we worked together. I mean, I've worked with so many different people. I've been very fortunate, Bill. I try to surround myself with great musicians whenever I'm doing a project. Like I'm back in the studio working on something I hope is going to be big. And I got Rocky from the Borstal Boys has been playing bass for me for a couple of years. So he was in the studio doing all my bass lines. And I had Matt Muckle come down. I don't know if you know Matt Muckle at all. So Matt came down and did
drums,
drum tracks. And yep, I've been working with Matt for a good 4 or 5 years on just different stuff. And I work with a lot of different drummers. I work with Matt Ferrante on a lot of things. I have another guy, Ken, that's a great drummer. I'm actually extremely fortunate, Bill, and don't think that I haven't thought about this or, counted my blessings in the last year about the fact that I actually have 3 really great drummers that I can pick from that I love to work with and I have great relationships with that are available. And, I work with Rocky as a bass player and, he always seems to be available, which is awesome. And because he loves doing it and makes time for it. So, and then I just kind of I've been doing all the guitars and vocals myself these days. And maybe I'll bring in a, keyboard player or somebody else here and there. I've had Danny Gonshore from the House Rockers come in and do some guitar on some songs for me. And just like,
I've actually had him on the show as well.
Danny's awesome. He's such a great guy. He's so nice. And everybody is really. All those House Rockers are awesome. Joker, he's an awesome dude. He's come to my shop a few times, just hung out with me and talked to me about stuff and just like seems pretty supportive. And, it's just good to have some of those people. I just like surrounding myself with good people, Bill. And I try hard to surround myself with good people. You said Lou Lombardi. Lou has been playing with me for years. And Lou, sometimes I do a cover show. Like I'll do a whole set of Nirvana songs. If you're paying, I'm playing.
Is that Supervana?
Yep. And so we just play a whole set of Nirvana songs. And again, that's me and Lou play guitar. That's kind of something I kind of started that with Lou and started doing it. He's all about playing whenever. So anytime I do a Supervana show, I just call Lou. He plays guitar for me and it's fun. It's a good time.
Lou's podcast, Lou Dini Rock and Roll Circus is my favorite podcast that I don't host.
Oh, that's cool. I've known Lou for years. He's never had me on his podcast. What's up with that, Bill?
Really? I've been on his podcast.
Amazing. What's up with that, Lou?
You know what happened? I asked him.
I love him.
I asked him, and he was like, "Yeah." So maybe you should just ask.
I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna chase him down. Lou knows my number.
So if you had
I've known him for 15 years, I think, probably.
If you had a chance meeting with your musical idol,
yes,
and you only had enough time to ask them one question,
yeah,
what would you ask?
I would say, Prince, how do you get that tone how do you get that creamy sound to come out of your guitar amp? Like, what's your effect setup that you're doing, or how are you running all your sound to get that? It's like distorted and it rocks, but it's really smooth and it sounds like I can only describe it as like a creamy guitar sound. Like, I'm infatuated with what that guy's doing with his guitar, and I've seen so many clips of him just tearing it up playing live. I firmly believe that Prince is one of the greatest guitar players that ever lived. I equal him to like an Eddie Van Halen or something like that. And I know that's probably sacrilegious to some people, but go out there and watch some video clips of Prince playing guitar. He's absolutely phenomenal. And I'll even say that he's better than Jimi Hendrix because he lived a lot longer. And Jimmy was pretty innovative, but I mean, Prince is he makes it look so easy, kind of like Eddie Van Halen, So that would probably be my question, because I've been trying to figure that one out for a while. I look at Google like what's on his pedal board, and like try to zoom in the picture. I'm like, what is that? What's that pedal right there? Or like, there's a couple set, but you should go Google his pedal board sometime. It's ridiculous. It's custom made, And the other thing too, a lot of people know. Just a fun fact for you, Bill, is like, Prince had all those custom guitars built for him. And the guy that built his guitars never met Prince. He built Prince guitars for 20 or 30 years, and he would talk to him on the phone. He would, video chat with him and stuff, and like, get his conversation and input about the guitars. And he always loved everything he did. The luthier that actually built those guitars for him, I think he's in Seattle. I forget the guy's name, but he actually never met Prince, which is amazing to me.
That is amazing.
How do you build that guy? 50 guitars or whatever ridiculous number it is, and you're talking about 20 and 30 and 40 $100,000 guitars. I mean, that was how much they cost before Prince played them. Like, I wonder what they were. They're probably worth $1 million a piece now. But just a fun tangent there for your listeners.
So we're gonna get to know you a little better with some of my questions that aren't really what you normally have in a radio interview, but
it's cool. Are we gonna do F, Marry, Kill?
No.
Good. All right, cool. We're keeping it PG.
So I have to give you a little bit of a scenario first.
All right, cool.
So SuperMonkey makes it big, and you're out on tour, and I'm tagging along with you. And in between shows, what's the soundtrack that we're going to listen to? So what kind of music is going to be on in that bus or that plane?
I mean, it depends on who's sitting close to the radio, And so I would have to say, I mean, geez, who's in the bus with us? These are all questions that I can't just answer. A loaded question like that, Bill.
Well, it's the day you're in charge of the radio. What are we
so I'm in charge of the radio. I mean, there's going to be some Def Leppard played for sure. I love Def Leppard, and what's funny is I listen to a lot of stuff. It really just depends on what kind of mood I'm in. Like I had this Bob Marley album called Positive Vibrations. It was in my, like, when I was selling vinyl at my store, it was on my store forever. Nobody ever bought it. And like just probably a year ago, I just ran and I was like, I'm going to open this one up because, I mean, I already paid for it, right? That's the worst part, by the way, of owning a record shop is being a vinyl collector and ordering and just having all these records. I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to listen to that day and just take one for the team and pull it off the wall. So I had pretty good self-discipline doing that kind of stuff. So anyways, I pulled this Bob Marley off the rack and I listened to it. And I couldn't believe how awesome of an album it was. I'd never heard it before. And so that's been on my turntable a lot lately. I just like the message he's putting out about being positive. And it's just really upbeat record, And so I'll listen to that, and then I'll go and put on Temple of the Dog, and then I'll put on, Led Zeppelin. I mean, it just depends what kind of mood I'm in, man. It could vary Prince is my favorite artist, so you know, you might have to look for Purple Rain.
I have a funny vinyl story for you.
Okay.
I have a total of two records here, and they're both singles. One is an Ace Frehley single, and the other one is Kiss. And I had them here for about a year. I went and bought a used record player, and during COVID, I finally said, you know what? I'm gonna play these. I'm gonna let my kids hear records. Because I have two 10-year-olds and a 12-year-old. You know, and they didn't even know what they were when I pulled them out. So I'm playing it, and my son is really into right. My son is really into technology, and he's like, "How does that even work?" So I'm explaining to him, there's the needle moves and it makes it vibrate, and and he looks at me and goes, "Nope, it's witchcraft." He walked out of the room.
I still haven't figured it out, Bill. And I've been making records, and like I don't know how they do that. I've seen the microscope close up and everything, and it still doesn't make sense to me. So it just goes over the groove and makes a vibration. It's like, how do you make the groove to make that vibration?
Right.
Explain that to me. Explain that witchcraft to me. So that's funny.
All right, so this might be a hard question for you. I want you to take an album that you absolutely love and imagine that you have to forget it so you can hear it again for the very first time and have that, that awesome feeling again.
Okay.
So which album would you want to hear again for the very first time?
It's weird that you're asking these questions. Like Alice in Chains' Dirt popped in my head for some reason. Like, so you asked that question. I don't know why. That's just the first thing that popped in my head. But like when that album kicks in with Them Bones, I mean, like, it's like the Memorex commercial. You're like, get back in the chair, And first time I heard that, I was like, oh my God. And like, this is some rockin' stuff, And so, I don't know. I love that album. I don't know why that's the first album I thought of. It's weird.
So usually when I have this conversation, I talk about Kiss Destroyer, which I heard the first time from my uncles who are a little bit older than me, not a lot. But this time what popped into my head was Nevermind by Nirvana. I was sitting on my parents' front porch. I was probably 12. And the next door neighbor's grandson brought it over and popped it in. And we were like, there's no way we should be listening to this. I would listen to that one again for the first time.
I remember when that came out, I just went to college. And so it was my freshman week of college, like that first week of school, it just came out, like I think that week. And it was just like slow. It might even have been a couple weeks into school. And it was just, I remember that, the song Teen Spirit coming out, and everybody was just like, dude, this song is amazing. And then everybody was buying the record. And everybody was playing every song on the record. And it was just like one of those records, everybody was playing it all the time. It was constantly everywhere. And it was so raw, I mean, it was polished, but it was raw compared to like all that hair metal we've been getting bombarded with for a decade, All
right,
There's
so
a lot of angst.
So what I need from you now is we're gonna play two songs here in the break.
Okay.
And let me get that pulled up. We're gonna play "Don't Let Life Pass You By" the Borstal Boys, and we're gonna play. Or I'm sorry, we played that already. We're gonna play Silk 9, "I Won't Carry You," but before that, we're gonna play your song "Forgive Me When I'm Gone." And this is your MTV/VH1 moment. Tell me about that song.
It's pretty simple, man. Cornell died, and I was pretty bummed that day, as most people were when they got. I mean, you get up in the morning, you check your Facebook, and there's this R.I.P. Chris Cornell everywhere. I got goosebumps now just talking about it. I'm like, I love that guy. I mean, that guy's voice. I never met him. I don't know him. And I just love his voice. I love Soundgarden. There was something just special about him. And like when you see that, you're like, oh my God, what happened? And then like you find out the horrific news. I'm just like, I was devastated all day. It's like, that's one of those people that like made it through. You know what I mean? Like all those people had passed away, like, Cobain and Wayne Staley from that grunge movement, and like that's when I really got into playing guitars during a lot of that the grunge era, you know, for a lot of that stuff. So I was pretty bummed out, like a lot of people, and I got home from work that day, and you know, I think I put the kids to bed, and I just went to sit on the back porch. I started playing that riff for about over and over, just the beginning melody. It just kind of stuck in my head, and I started thinking to myself, if Chris Cornell could write one more song, what would he say right now? And I just started writing some lyrics, and it wasn't really that hard. It came to me in like 5 minutes. And then the fun part about it was that, you know, about a year later, I went in the studio and I was doing the produced copy of it that you're going to play here. And like I had practiced, but it never happens. I actually went in there and did all my guitar solos on the first take. And it was really, you know, it sounds cheesy, but it felt like I had some help on that, you know, from beyond. It was just weird. And then like I remember as I was doing like the main solo, you know, I started with that one in the middle of the song in the studio. I tracked that solo down at Tonic Studios. I do all my work there with those guys, and then I go back and I do all the other flavors and stuff, you know. And so like I literally did it on the first take, and I remember the engineer Bobby who I was working with at the time, he just kind of turned around and looked at me, and because we had just started, and I was like, that was a good take, right? I was like, I don't think I could play that any better than I just did. I was like, let's listen to it. And then like it was done. That's never happened before in my life. I don't think it'll probably ever happen again. I'm usually in there all day until I get frustrated, and then I walk away, and I come back the next day, listen to what I did, and then I just go and do it in a couple takes, or I'll get it right away. And it usually takes me maybe 10 or 15 takes to get it perfect or something, but it's never on the first take, Bill, ever, you know? So that was kind of fun. When I listen to that, I think about that when I hear that so I was like, man, I can't believe and I know nobody else probably cares about that except me and maybe like one guy that plays guitar. It's like, oh, that doesn't happen very often, you know, like, but still, it's just one of those things that every time I hear that recording, it's like, man, I can't believe I did that one take. It's like, I wish it was always that easy. Like we were so in and out of that studio that day. I think we were there for 2 hours total, you know?
All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and take a listen to Forgive Me When I'm Gone by SuperMonkey, and we're going to follow that up with Silk 9, I Won't Carry You. Those of you that are listening live currently, you're not going to be able to hear those songs. You have to go to buildthescene.com starting 6 a.m. on Friday. It'll be available 24/7, 365 after that. You can also go and listen to all those stations I mentioned at the beginning of the show. There are times listed. If you go to parockshow.com, it shows you all the times that you can hear the show on those various stations. So now we're going to come back in as if we were listening. That was Silk 9, I Won't Carry You. Right before that, you heard Forgive Me When I'm Gone by SuperMonkey, who's hanging out with me tonight. There's Les Paul on the wall behind him. So what we're going to do is I have a couple more questions for you. And then I will let you have the rest of your evening off, because that working the
I'm not off. I got a phone call after this with Tom Kazarowski.
So
can you tell?
Yeah. Can you tell me about the moment that you realized you wanted to be a musician?
I can, actually. I do remember this. And I always loved to play guitar when I was in college and stuff. And I worked at this restaurant in Kent State, a place called Rockney's Pub. And again, this probably sounds cheesy, and I'm going to make Jeff listen to this, but I worked with this guy named Jeff Finn. He was in this band called Dink, and they were they were just a local Kent band, and they started packing the houses, and then they started getting some airplay with one of their songs in Cleveland. And then I saw them go from being the guy that I washed dishes with and cut fries with, you know, and worked in the kitchen. I saw this guy go literally be a bass player. I think he was around 40 at that time. And so he was a little older too. It might have been late 30s. And just getting his first break in life, you know, and I was 21 or 22. I was like, wow, this guy's just getting his first break. And he literally went from washing dishes for me to being on Beavis and Butthead, like almost overnight. within a month or two, and Beavis and Butthead loved their video. And so they got a lot of press from that and stuff. It was like, and they played the whole video too. I was like, that's pretty rare for Beavis and Butthead at the time. I mean, like, that's literally like, think about how ridiculous that is, by the way, a cartoon that just makes fun of people and other things, like giving you a stamp of approval, or at the same time can break your band, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, and
poor Winger.
I'm sure Red Beach is still pissed about that at some level, you know, and like those guys were making money and stuff, and like it's almost a mean thing to do. I mean, they kind of, in a jerkish way, for those guys' career. And thank God they can go out there and work again these days, you know, make money. But like, it was not cool, you know, to like them for a while. They were kind of like the joke, and that was no fun, you know. But then on the flip side, you know, you get Beavis and Butthead to love your stuff. You're getting a blessing, you know. And so I watched this guy go out there, and I remember, you know, I remember I was on a date with a girl named Amy, and we were at this bar, and I hadn't seen Jeff in about 6 months or so. And he just got back from tour, and he had all these Polaroids in his pocket with him in pictures with like him and Gene Simmons and stuff. And like I couldn't wait to go on a date with this girl, by the way. Like I finally got the, you know, nerve to ask her out and stuff, Bill. And like she said yes. And so I take her out, we go out and have drinks. And then my friend shows up. I haven't seen in 6 months. I completely forget I'm on the date with this girl. And we're sitting at a booth, and I'm like this with Jeff, like trying to absorb all this information. I'm like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. I want to do this in my life. And he's like, yeah, man. He's like, I'm 40 years old. He's like, I'm just now getting my breaks in life. He's like, if you want to go do it, go do it. And I honestly, pretty much from that point on, have been doing it. And, you know, it took me a long time to get where I am, where I have the relationships and the things that I can do today. And I'm fortunate, you know, and hopefully it'll keep growing as I get older and, you know, bigger and more successful, hopefully. And, but I do remember that. I mean, like, I remember like it was yesterday. I was just thinking back. I was like, this guy can do it. I can do it. No offense, Jeff. I still love you. And, and so, but like, it's just one of those things where I just like, it was weird because I knew him. You know what I mean? And then like to see him on TV and like have Beavis and Butthead love your stuff. That was pretty big back in the 90s, you know? So, but then they got pretty big. They went on, I think they did some tours. They got to open for Lords of Acid, I think was one of the big opening acts they got with those guys, and played festivals and did the whole thing, you know? And so that was influential for me because it made it look achievable to me.
That made me think of the movie Promised Land with Slant Six. I watched that movie just because Slant Six was in it.
I've never seen it.
You haven't?
No.
That's another one of Matt's bands.
I was gonna say it's one of Matt's dozen bands.
Yeah.
You should just have Matt on here and have him talk for everybody.
Well, listen.
You and Matt show.
The history of the show really is dependent on him. When I first started it, I had like 3 bands that I was designing websites for, and that was the music I had. And
okay.
The show was a complete accident. I'm not going to explain it all on the air because I've done it multiple times. But Matt showed up with a bag full of discs, and he's like, "Here, play this music." And that's how I started the show. That's where all the original music came from. It was awesome. There was a bag of CDs that Matt had of local music. He's like, make this happen. I
got a box of CDs. Some people just given me over the last, you know, since 2012, since I started my label. I listen to them, you know, and I'm pretty picky about who I work with in general. It's a lot of work.
This show started in 2004, so I have also heard a lot of CDs.
I bet. You probably have more than I do.
So this is Christina's question that I alluded to earlier.
All right.
For those of you that are just tuning in, Christina's the vocalist for the band The Shadow Event. This is the second question that she's given me that I've used on the show.
Okay. I know Christina, by the way.
Oh, okay. Her question is, who are your favorite bassist, guitarist, singer, and drummer?
Okay, so bassist. I got to say Rocky, because he's always there when I need him. And he comes up with cool stuff to play, you know, that makes my music better. And so that's the first person I think of. My favorite drummer. I mean, I got 3 guys I work with that are all great. On a professional level, I mean, Alex Van Halen's fun to watch. He's always great. On not that we're not professionals. I shouldn't have said that. I should have stayed on a major label level.
There you go.
I would say, I mean, Alex live was great. Oh, you know who I love, man, is this guy. I don't know his name. He plays for. I saw him. He was fantastic. I should look up his name. He plays for Gary Clark Jr. And this guy just looks like he's just doing this the whole time, and he's amazing. He's just a ball of energy, and he has I think one really giant bass drum and like a snare, a tom, and like 2 cymbals. I mean, the guy has no drums behind him, and he's just making a wall of sound with his drums. I saw him at the House of Blues in Cleveland. One time I was actually fortunate to get right in the front row when he was just starting to get big. He had sold the place out. And I got a funny story, actually, if you want to hear it. And he's one of my favorite guitar players, too, Gary Clark Jr. And so we can save that for another show, though. So favorite guitar player, I mean, geez, you're asking a guitar player what his favorite guitar player is. I would have to say Prince and Eddie Van Halen. But then, I love the simplicity of, Kurt Cobain's riffs. And they're so simple and easy, but then I also love Alice in Chains. Jerry Cantrell. I love Jerry Cantrell. He's one of my favorites. Mike McCready is fantastic. I could sit here and keep going. I don't have a favorite one, I don't think. It just depends on what my mood is that day. And so then favorite singer, again, I mean, there's just certain lead singers in the history of rock and roll that are beyond entertaining to me. David Lee Roth is one of them. I don't think best singer. I think he's the best entertainer.
Front man.
Because front man. You don't know what's going to come out of his mouth, and all those, even today, I saw him a couple of years ago with Van Halen. That dude's in shape, man. He was ripped and just doing all kinds of karate moves on stage and stuff, and it was fun to watch. You're just wow, dude, he's going to be sore tomorrow. He's 60 years old, and so he's running around doing it. So he's awesome to watch. And at the same time, though, it's I love Sammy Hagar with Van Halen, man. And I love Sammy Hagar by himself. I think he's a fantastic singer and a fantastic frontman. But I think at the end of the day, it goes to Prince because he could do it all. He could play drums, he could play guitar, he could sing, he could play keyboard, and he was stellar in every single one of them, So, except I think horns. I don't think he could play horns. So, these are loaded questions, Bill. By the way, I mean, how do you answer that? That's too hard, man. Gotta give me some softball stuff. What's my favorite ice cream?
I'm looking at the next question as you say that. What is one thing that your fans or friends would be surprised to know about you that they don't currently know? I was going to say this was the easiest question of the night, but then you laid that on about the questions.
It's pretty funny.
Maybe not.
It's pretty funny you asked it, though, because I'm a pretty private guy in real life. I might be out in a bar and be very social with people and stuff, but then when I'm home, I'm pretty private. I got 2 kids that I have custody of, that I take care of, and so those are always my priority every day. And everything kind of revolves around them. And I don't know. I think I'm a good dad. That's probably the one thing people don't realize is that I take pride in that, and I absolutely love doing it. Something it brings joy to me every day that you can't put a price tag on, and you can't buy it.
Okay. Last question for you.
All right.
And it's kind of a 2-parter, but
okay.
What is next for SuperMonkey, and where can SuperMonkey be found online?
Well, you can check us out at ilovesupermonkey.com. Super easy. ilovesupermonkey.com. That's right. It's right over there. Wait, I have to go this way.
Yeah, that's why it's on my side. Because I realized the other day I realized that I could never point at it when I had it on your side.
We should do the Brady Bunch thing where we look at each other. Yeah, it's kidding. So what's next? I am currently in the studio with Dave Hillis, who's a producer that actually just moved here I think a little year or two ago, and he moved from Seattle. And Dave's got a lot of credits under his belt. He actually was the chief engineer for Pearl Jam 10. And when he first started working at the main studio out there, that he met all these bands. He did work on the singles soundtrack. They did the song Wood, by Alice in Chains. It's the one you hear on the radio. Dave helped record that. So he's pretty good engineer. So I've been working with, my friends Doug at Casper at Tonic. I'm partners down at Tonic Studios. And so I've been working down there with those guys. I want to do something different. And I've been working with Doug for 10 or 15 years, and he's great. He's awesome. He's one of the best in the city. And Dave made some of my favorite albums, so I want to kind of combine those two things and work with Dave down at that studio. And Doug's kind of helping get situated in there and helping work on my stuff. So we tracked bass and drums last week for a couple new songs that I'm super excited about. I think there's some really good stuff. And I worked with working with Dave was the first time I actually worked with a producer. I produced all my own music with Doug's help at the studio. Occasionally I'll take some input from Rocky and, my drummer, Matt, or Matt Muckle, Matt Ferrante, either one of them, or even Ken. I'll take some input from them. If they have an idea that's great, we use it. I'm not a maniac like that or anything. So I've been producing all my own stuff. So this is the first time I actually gave the reins to somebody else and said, here's my songs. What do you think we should do? And because I'm really trusted Dave can do something awesome with these. And he actually has already, he's pushed me to come up with ideas that I didn't think of, that I thought the song was done, but it wasn't. And we took it in a whole new place. Now it's even better. And so I'm really excited about that. So we went in the studio, we tracked bass and drums last week. We're going to get the guitars done, as soon as we can get in there and get done. It's everybody's schedules and the studio being booked a lot makes it not easy for me to get in there all the time. But so we're working on that, and that's going to be definitely my best stuff yet, I think. And then I'm working on a live stream concert as we speak, trying to nail down the venue and figure out where the best place is to hold the live stream. We are going to sell some physical tickets, and we are going to have some seating and some in-person, socially distanced, whatever we're allowed to do. And then we're going to put it on the web, put a live stream out there for, I think, $10 or something. So if people, I have friends in other cities are always asking me when I'm going to come play there, or when are we coming back to this market, and when can I see you live? I hear that one all the time. And we always say to people, I personally don't play more than a couple shows in Pittsburgh a year, period. I'm just not going to do it. I want to pack the house and get a good crowd every time I play. And I'm not going to do it unless I know that, when you play over and over and over and over and over again, people aren't going to come to your show. They just they know you're going to play next week. So there has to be a little bit of a fear of loss. And I really don't know when the next time I'm going to play live is, because I don't know. And then I'd say that to people all the time. And, some people come to shows and they're like, oh, I'm going to catch you next. I'm like, okay, well, my last show was March 7th or something like that. We opened for Rad at Jurgles. And guess what? That was the last show I played, Bill, was in March, so, and it wasn't anything to do with me. I have other shows booked, but they all got canceled, and so you got to really take advantage of the opportunities to go out there. And if you see a band that you want to see, go see them, because you don't know when they're going to play live next, and you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And, I never take tomorrow for granted. And I'm just thankful for opportunities that I have in life. So we're working on, like I said, we're going to do a combination of live show and live stream. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens.
You have to let me know when you have the details figured out, and I'll do some.
I will. Absolutely.
Throw it up on the website and Facebook and all the social media.
That. Yeah, we're definitely going to do it. And, maybe we can do something you guys can broadcast live from there or something. Who knows, And
it's possible.
Do some kind of brainstorming. I'm an idea guy. I think outside the box all the time. So, but
here's one of those little known things about me, because I don't really tell it all that often. I'm actually the vice president of First Angel Media as well. So we probably get you some photographers down there and some writers and things too. So get you a little more publicity ahead of time and afterwards as well. I think you might have just froze on me. You definitely froze on me. Okay, well, I guess that is going to end the episode. That's episode number 538. Wow, little dyslexica. 538 of the Pennsylvania Rock Show, featuring the best unsigned rock and metal that Pennsylvania has to offer. With me tonight was SuperMonkey. We're going to play some more music for you as we head out into the night. You'll know we're done when you hear John Lane from the Hellfire Club give our outro. Make sure you check us out each and every Friday. The shows go live at 6 a.m. on buildascene.com. And then they start airing on the streaming radio stations at 8 p.m. also on buildascene.com. And they go through the various streaming sites and the FM station in St. Louis, Missouri, 107.1 FM. Buildascene.com, megarockradio.net, rootarooradio.com, altrockradio.ca, and xrpradio.co.uk in Birmingham. My name is Bill, and I will catch you next week.